Hello everybody, you tuned to Radio Card Game. After the analysis of Thunder Dragon, today I will bring you guys the analysis of another brand new archetype that will come out in Soul Fusion later this year, called Orphegel. Orphegel belongs to the War Legacy lore and is the opposing faction of Palladian. It is an archetype with 3 Dark Machine type monsters alongside the 4th one, which is as always the new War Legacy piece in the main deck that, by banishing themselves from the graveyard, boost out the summon of those from the extra deck, who are reliant on ripping off the opponent's link monsters, shuffling your banished ones. Orphegel Diver is the first one you want to resolve, since by banishing itself from the graveyard, summons an Orphegel monster from the deck, except itself. It says, as the other 2 monsters of the main deck, that once you use this effect, which is not once per turn, you cannot special summon any monster for the rest of the turn, except dark monsters. Since it's by far the best one and the starter of any of your combos, I doubt you will play less than 3. The next one is Orphegel Skeleton. By banishing itself from the graveyard, brings back an Orphegel from the graveyard, except itself. Even though it seems that you need already some setup to use its effect, believe me if I tell you that it is a quite, if not the most important card in the archetype, since not only it's another important piece for your combos, but also gives you a comeback in the following turn, bringing back your link monsters too, as Diver, a free of. Orphegel Cannon is the level 1, and despite its effect, which summons an Orphegel from your hand by banishing itself from the graveyard, being a tuner makes me having mixed feelings about it. Being a level 1, it can be summoned out by 1-for-1, and being a tuner allows you to use it for Crystal Needle Fiber, but summoning Orphegel from your hand isn't actually the most ideal thing you wanna do. Not only because you usually don't have Orphegel monsters in your hand, but also because if you have them, you will use them as a discard fodder for Orphegel Prime, a spell card that I will talk about later. Sure, you can just summon Cannon, go into Link Revo and then use Cannon's effect to bring out another Orphegel from your hand, which will give you the possibility to link summon into one of your link monsters, but you don't really want to have 2 Orphegel in your hands in the first place. I think this card fits best as a one-off, but can easily be cut down to 0. The last main deck monsters is not really an Orphegel, but it belongs to the archetype as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. War Legacy World Scepter cannot be destroyed by battle with extra deck monsters if normal summoned or set. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a War Legacy monster from your hand, even itself, which lets you pretend you didn't break, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon one of your banished Orphegels. But you can only special summon dark monsters for the rest of the turn, just like any other Orphegel. Both these effects are hard once per turn, but you can use both in the same turn and are both really useful, especially the second one since it lets you summon back not only your main deck monsters, but those from the extra too. I would play this card as a 1 or 2 of, but you can even bump it to 3 if you are playing a more War Legacy centric build or not playing it at all. The archetype has 3 deemed link monsters which require 2 or more effect monsters and at least 1 Orphegel. They also have a built-in protection effect while they are linked, and the second hard once per turn effect. Galatea is the link 2 and the first one you wanna go into. While it's linked, it cannot be destroyed by battle. You can target one of your banished machine type monsters to shuffle it back into the deck, and then you can set 1 Orphegel spell trap card from your deck. Galatea is really important because it lets you have immediately the spell cards you need that let you play faster and better, which I will talk about later. Longirsu is the link 3 and while it's linked, it cannot be destroyed by card effect. Also, by targeting and shuffling 2 of your banished machine type monsters, you can set to the graveyard a linked monster your opponent controls without targeting, but unfortunately it cannot attack the turn you activated its effect. Orchestron as a link 4 is definitely the boss monster of the deck. While linked, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. By targeting 3 of your banished machine type monsters, you shuffle them back into the deck and then you can make all linked monsters your opponent controls reach 0 attack and defense and negate their effect. Note that this effect not only doesn't target, but lasts as long as they are on the field, and not just until the end phase, and on top of that, you can even activate it during the damage step. One thing to note about their effects is that they don't necessarily need to shuffle back all their targets. They still resolve as long as at least one of the monsters is shuffled, just like Ritual Beast Ulticanok or Disciples of the True Dracophoenix. Since you can reborn them with Skeleton or just shuffle back into the extra with their own effects, you can easily play 2 copies of them and even just 1 copy of Orchestrion, since it's the most difficult to summon. But what makes this deck really shine are the spell cards. First of all, the field spell Orphegel Babel lets you activate the effects of your Orphegel monsters during either player's turn, which is a huge boost for the archetype since it allows you to chain the effects of your Link monsters using, for example, both Longirso and Galatia's effects by shuffling just 2 monsters, like I explained before. Moreover, you can discard 1 card to add it back from the graveyard during your turn, except the one it's been sent there. Thanks to this last effect, and due to the ease it is searchable with, you can play 2 or even 1 copy of it, but since it's so important that you want to see it as soon as possible, I don't find wrong playing it as a free of. Orphegel Einsatz is the continuous spell, and is important almost as a field spell, even though it might not seem so. As an art once per turn, if your opponent summons the monsters, you can take an Orphegel or World Legacy monster from your deck and either send it to the graveyard or banish it. These cards let you fuel the graveyard with the needed Orphegel or puts fodder in the banished zone, ready to be shuffled back into the deck with the Link monsters. Since there are only 3 Orphegel main deck monsters, you will run out of banished Orphegel really quickly. This card solves this problem of the deck. I will play this card as a free of, and having it next to the Babel is the best setup you can get. The third and last spell card is Orphegel Prime, and it's a normal spell with an art once per turn effect that reads as follows. Send 1 Orphegel or War Legacy monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, draw 2 cards. Pretty useful to send your Orphegel monster into the graveyard, or even your Bricky World Scepter. Since it's searchable and not necessary for your combos, I will play this card as a 2 or even a 1-off. While the spell cards are useful and quite important for the deck, I cannot say the same for the trap cards, which are quite underwhelming. Orphegel attack is as low as you can get. When a monster declares an attack, you can tribute 1 Orphegel or War Legacy monster and target 1 monster your opponent controls, banish it. Maybe if it didn't need to wait for a monster to declare an attack, it would have been at least playable. Orphegel Core, on the other hand, as Einsatz, can appear as useless or gimmicky, and so I thought when I was playing the deck at first, but then I realized that it actually makes sense. First of all is a continuous trap card, which already makes it better, at least for how the archetype is built, and its effect is not an art once per turn. It reads as follows. Once per turn, you can banish 1 monster from the graveyard or field and target 1 Orphegel card you control, except Core, and that card cannot be targeted by card's effect for the rest of this turn. On top of that, if another Orphegel and or War Legacy cards you control are going to be destroyed, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. The first effect is really useful since not only gives your Link monsters the protection from targeting they were lacking, but also lets you banish a monster, note that can be whatever monster, not necessarily an Orphegel, which can be a fodder for your Link monster's effect. It doesn't provide extension for your combos, neither advance the game state, so it's not as important as the spell cards, but it's still a good card you will find useful during your duel. I suggest you to play it as a 1-off or even 2 if you like it or you got some space. That's it for the archetype cards, but the deck possibilities go further than your Orphegels. The archetype needs an easier and consistent way to access the first Link summon of Galatea, or to start playing in general. The best way to do it is with Armageddon Knight, since it lets you footish a dark monster on summon, and all your Orphegel and even War Legacy monsters are dark. To turbo out the chances to get your engine going, you can even play Mathematician, which is a nice pick. Interesting tech choices for the deck can be Jet Synchron, which is machine type monsters that not only let you discard a card to reborn itself from the graveyard, but it's also banished when it leaves the field, giving you an extra fodder for your Link Monsters effect. On top of that, it's a tuner that gives the deck synchro summoning or just access to Crystal Needle Fiber whenever we'll get it. Mecha Phantom Beast All Iron is a good touch too that works really well with Summon Sorceress even without Needle Fiber. Since the Orphegel package is narrow and works just with Armageddon Knight, the free space in the deck for generic stuff is quite relevant, giving you the possibility to put a medium-high number of entraps and Called by the Grave, which is itself a nightmare for this deck. Speaking of which, keep in mind that you cannot summon monster except Dark, so the only nightmare monster you can afford is Unicorn. But on the good side, you can go into the Boral and topologic monsters without any troubles, which are quite synergic too, at least the last ones. Another gimmicky build can be more World Legacy centric, since it's for now the only deck that can use those cards at the best, even though it is probably less competitive than a quote-unquote pure one. Several good World Legacy cards fit very well in the archetype, such as the new World Legacy Survivor, that after excavating 5 cards, let you add one World Legacy card and send the other to the graveyard. World Legacy Succession and Sorrow are 2 great cards too, alongside War Armor that can add them upon summon, which can easily eat the field thanks to the first effect of War Scepter. If you want to go even further, Landmark and War Crown are 2 other good cards. While the first one will let you reborn 2 monsters by banishing a World Legacy monster from your hand that will then become a fodder for your Link monsters, Crown is just a special summon that straight gives the Link status to your Links, and at the same time can negate the effect of a monster special summon from the extra deck. I would legitimately like to see this variant actually work competitively, but at the moment it's not even sure if the quote-unquote pure build will be so. The deck is strong and quite fast, can win impeccably against extra deck monsters, but struggles a little bit to deal with opponent's spell trap cards, since it has no dimmed way to remove them. Overall, I think this archetype may have competitive potential as a tier 2 or 1.5, but it really needs both Summon Sorceress and Needle Fiber to do the best. We will see what will happen in the future, and I cannot wait to play this deck in real life, since I found it really funny and skillful to play. But what do you guys think about Orphegel? Do you think it has been overlooked and will find its way into the meta, or is it just another failing World Legacy lore deck? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, leave a like and subscribe. We will see you again in the Orphegel combo tutorial. Radio Card Game, signing out.